Yes, please.
जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन भज जनरञ्जना यशोदानन्दन भज जनरञ्जना यमुनतीरावनचारी यमुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनतीरावनचारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Ananta Dev Prahalad Narasimha Jaya Ananta Dev
Narayana.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Gurudev
கனெக்ட் பண்ணி தருவா.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol
குரூப்ல போட்டிருக்காரு.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Oh,
जय ओम विष्णु पाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिगोवर्धन की जय ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय मायापुर श्री नवद्वीप धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय द्वारका धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय गंगा माई की जय यमुना माई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी महारानी की जय समवेत गौरभक्त वृंद की जय गौरभक्त प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द assembled devotees हरे कृष्णा all glories to the assembled devotees हरे कृष्णा all glories to the assembled devotees हरे कृष्णा all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Sri Gauranga जय श्रील प्रभुपाद ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतः सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टकी Om Tat Sat. So devotees, welcome for Saturday morning Bhagavatam class at Seshadri, at ISKCON Seshadripuram. So today I have been asked to summarize the first half of chapter 13 of first canto. So this chapter is entitled Dhṛtarāṣṭra quits home. This is a very important chapter. Of course, everything in Bhagavatam is absolutely important. You know, so many times whenever we read any verse, we feel, oh, this is the most important one. But actually, everything is so important. And this one, again, you know, I always feel any one verse you read and then you try to understand it, sort of conveys the entire concept of Krishna consciousness. So this is no different. It actually gives a very good understanding of why one needs to practice Krishna consciousness, and this is specific instructions actually they are given to Dhṛtarāṣṭra. We will see that as we go forward. So this is a lengthy chapter, so there are 60 verses here, and therefore we will be covering 30 verses. Actually 1 hour is not sufficient for doing this one, you know, at least 2 hours is required, but nonetheless we will try to cover as much as possible in and try to cover the essence of all of these 15 chapters, all of these 15 verses, 30 verses. So we'll just only the first one I will read the Sanskrit, and then the rest of them we will just read the English and then English translation, and then we will go forward. The text one. Suta uvacha vidurastirtha yatranam maitreyad atmano gatim jnatva gat astinapuram taya vapta vivitsitaha. Sri Suta Goswami said, while traveling on a pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya and then returned to Hastinapura. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired. So Vidura is, one of the uh, greatest personalities in the history of Krishna consciousness. So he is none other than Yamaraj, who's actually one of uh, mm, uh, the 14, 13. So Mahajanas, 12 Mahajanas is one of the 12 Mahajanas, which includes such elevated personalities as Narada, then, Vyasadeva. There are many of these wonderful personalities who are actually establishing Krishna consciousness all over the universe. And Vidura, who's actually an incarnation of Yamaraj, is actually one of them. Now, here the point mentioned is he was actually traveling on a pilgrimage. So the background is there for that. But before that, let's try to understand who's Vidura in Mahabharata context. So he was born to a lady from the fourth class of the society, which is called Shudrani. So the other two, the other two brothers, the half brothers, were Dhṛtarāṣṭra and Pandu. So since he was born um, as the son of a maid servant, he was not actually considered in equal footing with the other two brothers who were actually born with a Kshatriya lineage. That means their mothers were from the Kshatriya family, while Vidura, who was born of a maid servant, and therefore he was not considered on equal footing. Nonetheless, he was still one of the brothers, and he was part of the family in different respects. Now, if you have to try and understand why did Yamaraj come over here as Vidura being born of a maid servant, there is a little bit of a background to that. Vidura was, as I was saying, he was Yamaraj, and there was one saintly person called Mundaka Muni. So he was there in this Earth planet, and he was very very advanced, what do you call, spiritual practitioner. So he was in his ashram, at which point in time there were a lot of dacoits in those days, and those dacoits actually had looted you know heavily, and they had actually come and taken sort of shelter without Muni knowing in his ashram. So the police, right? Those days, whether they were called police or not, I don't know. But nonetheless, the police department from the kings, they came chasing after these dacoits, and then they actually found them in the ashram of this Muni, and therefore everybody were arrested, including the Muni himself. So they were all taken to the court, and unlike these days where one case goes on for 30 years, their decisions were quite fast, and then the judge there actually pronounced all these people as guilty, and this Mundaka Muni was given a prime punishment. That means that he should be killed by pierced by an arrow and killed. Arrow means some whatever you call a javelin kind of a thing, which will just pierce the heart from like that. So he will have to be killed like that. Such a punishment was given to him, and then everything was to be executed. And towards the just before he was to be executed, the king immediately, having realized that he is actually a saint and there is some mistake in this whole thing, the king immediately gave an order. Just like in today's world also, the president has the power to overrule the Supreme Court judges thing. There could be many people who have been condemned to death by hanging in constitutional India, but the president has the power to pardon. right? Like this. So the king immediately, here it's not a pardon, he's realizing the mistake and then he's quickly making a decision to stop this execution. So then this Mundaka Muni was very upset. Like, it's a very thrilling thing to be just going to the jaws of death and then, you are suddenly getting out of that thing. So Mundaka Muni immediately went to Yamaraj. He's a very powerful person. It's not like, some ordinary mortal person. So he immediately went to, of course, he was also about to be killed in one sense. But then nonetheless, he went up to meet Yamaraj, and then he asked him, "Why did this happen to me?" So confident. We all can, any of us say that, there's so much of anarthas, there's so much of sins that every one of us have committed, at least I have committed. So, but here when you come to this gentleman, he was very confident, I have not committed any sin. So why did you punish me? So he went and asked him, Munduka Muni. So I've been mentioning it as, or rather Manduka Muni. I am little poor with the pronunciation of names, so forgive me. Manduka Muni, his name was. So he asked Yamaraj, why did you punish me? I have not committed any sins. Why did you punish me? Then Yamaraj tells him that, you were actually, when you were very young, you took on very sharp straw and pierced an ant. So, and therefore you are supposed to get a punishment for that act of yours. Then this Manduka Muni actually says, at least he felt, this is something wrong. When I was such a small child, I do not have any um, knowledge of what is correct and what is wrong. And at that point in time, if I had committed some mistake, it should not, this kind of a punishment is something which is not justified. So he curses Yamaraj that, you go to this material world and take birth as the son of a maidservant. So this is the kind of a background which made Yamaraj descend to earth. But this is the apparent reason. There is another reason which is more important, because I have already mentioned that this Yamaraj is actually one of the prominent personalities for propagating this Krishna consciousness. And Yamaraj had the most toughest job of all the demigods, or rather all the empowered personalities who are assisting the Supreme Personality of Godhead in managing the affairs of the material world. His job was the what you call the highest judge of the entire manifestation of this material manifestation. That means he is supposed to uh, uh, judge the person's activities when he has been given a particular body, and then based on record his activities and based on his acts to be giving him the judgment of what will be his next life, and what kind of punishments he need to be given. And so Prabhupada mentions that, there are so many people who are completely sinful in today's world. We know that there is nothing that new. 99.99% of the population is sinful. And therefore, the job of Emaraj was like, I was working 24 by 7. Like here, many of us software fellows, they are struggling hard, working all the time. But even those days, or even in the, what do you call, in the affairs of the Lord, in maintaining and managing the affairs of the Lord, also there's a lot of difficult tasks. This is one of them. And he was like 24 by 7 on duty. But then as someone who is supposed to be really a very advanced preacher, how come that, he can get some time off and go and preach? So with this background, then he was having this desire, no, I want to go and preach this message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the Lord manifested it for him in through this process of, okay, through this curse that you go down to this material world and you can actually preach. And so he was there for 100 years in this material world, and then he was preaching. And here he had gone on a pilgrimage. Why did he go on a pilgrimage? I think it will come in some of the verses later, so we will address it there. So he had actually gone on a pilgrimage, and so that is this about this particular verse. And in the process, he met Maitreya Muni. That's the most important thing, where he met Maitreya Muni, who is a very advanced spiritual master. And he had a long time with him, understanding the, like, see, it's not that Vidura did not know about spiritual life, being Yamaraj himself, but then at the same time he was also playing a part of a human being in this material world, and therefore he also accepted a spiritual master. And then he had a lot of inquiries. He did amazing inquiries. We will discuss about that in the next two verses. So he met Maitreya Muni, and there were a long, the Guru Sishya, disciple, Guru Sishya. The job of the disciple is to inquire from the spiritual master, and the spiritual master is supposed to enlighten the disciple. So that was going on. So he spent a lot of time with Maitreya Muni, and then he is fully enlightened. That means the purpose is actually to understand, me and understand the self and understand the purpose of life. So he was there and he understood all of that. The next verse is, after asking various questions and becoming established in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna, Vidura retired from putting questions to Maitreya Muni. So this actually summarizes everything about the guru and disciple relationship. The object of every human being is to actually understand the purpose of life, and he has to approach a spiritual master, and the only business of the spiritual master is to enlighten this person. And what is that business? Enlighten means, is it about giving something about a lot of knowledge of material science, of how an atom is created, how an atom works, or all of that? So, but the ultimate object of any knowledge or purpose of any inquiry should be, who am I? What is the purpose why I am here? And what is it that I am supposed to achieve in this particular lifetime? So that is the question that one needs to know. And here the highest purpose has been actually taught by the spiritual master in here, Maitreya Muni, and Vidura completely got it. So it's sometimes very easy when you give the answer in one line. Sometimes people are not convinced. They want a lifetime to experiment, right? This is all happening for all of us also. When someone told us, you chant Hare Krishna and then you will go back to Godhead, we are not convinced. No, what is this? So is it so simple that I chant Hare Krishna and go back to Godhead? No, no, not possible. That I have to do so many different things. I need to do Ashtanga Yoga. I need to explore into the mind. I need to go deep inside my mind. I have to explore about this cosmic thing in my mental speculation. We have so many of these things. So, but here the conclusion has been given very clearly that, you can do whatever you want to do, but at the end of the day, the ultimate knowledge or whatever we are doing will have to lead us to this final answer, which is actually the loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it is mentioned people have a lot of, we start off with thinking, I am the body. We are fully engrossed in our material sense gratification, wanting to achieve this, achieve that, achieve this. One in terms of acquiring material knowledge, one in terms of acquiring wealth, one in terms of having nice relationship. And then, we want to, once these things are reasonably settled, or even if some of them are little here and there, mostly that is the case. But we try to move forward with some one aspect of it, either with wealth or with knowledge or with having nice relationships. So then there's a deeper and deeper desire to get recognition. You keep on going in that direction. And sometimes when there is a failure, you try to search, I want to go and understand why all this are happening. Even if there is success, some people are actually pushed to say, but then why is this like this? I want to understand. So they go into this jnana. So from the karma aspect, you go into the jnana. That means trying to understand, this thing. So you go into a lot of reading so many books and try to understand through various methods. There is again, there's some people get into dhyana yoga, then ashtanga yoga. There are many processes, bodily exercises and mind related exercises, or through the exploring through various texts which are available in plenty, both authorized and not authorized. We may not know, but we think it is authorized because they seem to be giving some complicated uh, uh, what you call speculation. Therefore we are interested, we go and see. So like this, people go into different aspects, but at the end of the day, then one comes to that final conclusion that Vasudevaha sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyante Vasudevaha sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. That means one comes to this conclusion after many births of searching like this, to the conclusion that Vasudeva is the ultimate, and one has to simply serve that Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Vidura has actually come to that kind of a conclusion after having had this long discussion. Once you are firmly fixed up, then your questions, you have understood everything. Therefore, there is nothing to ask. In one sense, of course, there is a lot of to ask about the Supreme Lord, to understand, to enjoy about the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in principle, to understand what is what, he is already completely satisfied. He has understood, and therefore his questions are finished. That's what has been written here. The next verse is a very good one. In sense, a good one means it's a lot of history here, so we will spend some time on that. When they saw Vidura return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaja Yudhishthira, his younger brother Dhṛtarāṣṭra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Drupati, Shubhadra, Uttara, Kripi, many other wives of the Kauravas and other ladies with children, all hurried to him in great delight. It so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after a long period. So this is the homecoming of a great personality. Why even an ordinary person, when he is coming back after a long time, right? If there is real love and affection in that family, everybody will be so happy that this person has come back. So they have a big celebration, right? It's very natural. So like that is happening. And here Prabhupada is actually trying to give some introduction about some of the characters that this is. So many of them have been mentioned, but Prabhupada has chosen to give a little bit of an introduction about three personalities, and so let us quickly try to cover them. Gandhari. So the first person here Prabhupada talks about is Gandhari. Gandhari is the wife of Dhṛtarāṣṭra, and Dhṛtarāṣṭra is the half brother of Vidura. So the elder brother, the first one is Dhṛtarāṣṭra, then the second one is Pandu, and then is Vidura, who is the half brother of these two gentlemen. So Dhṛtarāṣṭra was a blind personality, but he was the elder one, and he was supposed to become the king of that entire dynasty. And because he was blind, there are some rules, right? In the society there are always some kind of a rule. Who, like today we saw the demise of this the queen of the England. So then how is it that she became a queen or whatever? Then there is some culture, or there is some kind of a rule book in each society. So in that society, it was mentioned whoever is the first person in that family, whether it's a man or a woman, then they become the head of the state, in that king's family, like that. So in India, not in India, in this Vedic culture, the top, the elder son will become will be the king in that Kshatriya family. But there are also other guidelines of what are the qualification, what are the disqualification. One disqualification was if he was not actually fully competent in terms of his physical faculty, then he is not in a position to take over the reins. So Dhṛtarāṣṭra, since he was born blind, he was not given the right to rule the country, and therefore or his regime. And then his younger brother Pandu was given the reins. So Dhṛtarāṣṭra was a blind man, and he was to be married to this. He was married to this lady called Gandhari, and this she is basically she was the daughter of Maharaja Subala, the king of Gandhara. So this place Gandhara is actually Kandahar, right? We know it is a part of Pakistan. It is a very famous place. A lot of demoniac activities had happened there. We all know some, I don't know, 15, 20 years back, one of the Indian Air Force, Indian Airways, one of the national carriers, Air India, I think, that was hijacked, and then many people were killed in that flight. They landed that flight in Kandahar, and then even today it's a lot of place where a lot of militancy are being harbored from that place, is what I hear from various channels and all that. So it's a very notorious place even today, but even those days, in one sense, because many of the demoniac mindset people were born from that place. But nonetheless, this Gandhari was a very amazing personality. She is one of the most chastest in the history of the universe. Such a great personality she was. So she was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and in her young days, in maiden days, she had prayed to the Lord that she should have 100 children. So it is natural for women. Even today we can see this women actually has a natural tendency for having a caring and loving relationship, and particularly care for children. It's a longing for any woman to have a child. So somehow she prayed that she should have 100 children, and she should really care and love them, like this, any thing like that. So she took this boon from Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva is very very merciful. Whenever he is pleased, he is very easily pleased, and he will also give whatever kind of a boon his devotees ask. So he gives her this boon, and then she was to be married, and then she realized that she has to marry this man who is actually blind. Then I don't know, those days, these, the parents decided in her, like this, maybe he's a king and he's a very big personality, whatever. So, okay, what if he's blind, whatever. So she was married to this gentleman, and she decided, she was that I am now marrying this man, and then I will follow him to death, whatever it is. And therefore she says, okay, now he is actually not able to see, and therefore as I am following him, it is my her way of looking at the thing is like, I will also follow him by following could be in different things for different people. But she thought, I will follow by, if he is not able to see, then it should be that I should also not be able to see. So she covered her eyes, even though she was very perfectly had good sight. She covered her eyes, and then from then on till she passed away, she never removed her whatever the covering for her eye, other than one occasion, which is not part of this today's session. She opened her eyes for one particular reason, but other than that, she never opened her eyes. So she was following this gentleman like that. But being, see, that's why Bhagavatam is something which is not very artificial or something which is like imagined. This actually talks about the good and bad of everything. It's not like, it paints a very rosy picture everywhere. So Bhagavatam, actually here, Gandhari is also mentioned that while there's nice parts that we discussed about her being a very chaste lady, a very whatever, but she also had some of her negatives, which is she was always had this jealousy also. Like, we see most people have jealous. Like this, she also had jealous, particularly with Kunti, who is basically this Pandu's wife. That means her husband's younger brother's wife. So like these two were wives of two brothers. So when Kunti was also pregnant, and she was also pregnant, and Kunti gave birth to a son first. So this Gandhari was very upset. Like, how can I am, more senior to her, and I should have given birth first. And, like that, she was having so much anger and envy that she sort of hit her stomach in that anger. And she was pregnant at that point in time. And in that anger, when she hit her stomach, she had a kind of a miscarriage, and what came out was simply a lump of flesh. There is no physical child at that point in time, maybe not developed or whatever it is, but what came out was a lump of flesh. So then Vyasadev then guided her, and he was also a very ardent devotee of Vyasadev, and he guided her, okay, you divide this flesh into 100 pieces, and then each one of them will manifest as a child. So she divided them into 100, that flesh into 100 pieces, and then from that came out 100 sons. So her wish of having 100 children was fulfilled just in one delivery. So these are amazing things that we can't comprehend. But then the power of Lord Shiva, practically it's very difficult for a human to give birth to 100 people, right? How can anyone? We have had many of us. If you go back to our history, our forefathers, there were 8 children, 9 children, 10 children, like that. But 100 is a little too much for one person. But therefore, Lord Shiva has his own way of manifesting whatever boon that he gave. So this was that pastime, as a result of which she got 100 children, and she took care of them all very, very well. So this is her this one, and then she had actually a very loving relationship even with the other children of Pandu. So this is, personality has different aspects to him or her. It's not like, I only carry one side of it. While sometimes I may be very bad, but in so many different ways I may be very good. So we cannot judge a person like, oh, this is a villain kind of a thing. This some practical life lessons for all of us also. We should not judge. Maybe there are some weaknesses in certain person, and because of it someone behaves in a different particular way. That doesn't mean you paint them in a way, in a particular with a vision, and then say this person is always like that. No, there are different aspects to your personality. And then here she was actually a very balanced person, very just person. So she was actually very much in favor of the Pandavas also. So she was not happy with the way her children were trying to kill the Pandavas, or having this desire to usurp the land of the which was rightfully belonging to the Pandavas. So she was in favor of actually dividing the land into two territories and giving one to the Pandavas and one to the Kauravas, like this. So that was one of her just side of it, and she really loved those children and took care of them also very well. Then during the times when later we will see Dhṛtarāṣṭra actually leaving home. That's the topic here. So Dhṛtarāṣṭra will actually have to leave home, and she could have actually remained back and said, okay, he is leaving, but I will continue to live here. Everyone has a right to do what they want to do. But she chose to follow Dhṛtarāṣṭra when he abandoned the life here, and he went towards salvation, and she followed him there also. And then Dhṛtarāṣṭra passed away, not in at a level of bhakti, but he passed away at a level of dhyana, and he actually self-emulated himself. By the practice of dhyana, he was sitting there, and then he could generate the fire from within, and then his body was consumed. And Gandhari actually, and when his body was then the entire house in which he was sitting also got the fire, and Gandhari actually entered into the fire, and she also left her body along with this Dhṛtarāṣṭra. So that is something about her. Then there is about Kunti Devi. That is the wife of Pandu. That means the mother of the Pandavas. So now it's already 7:30. We are another 20-25 minutes are there, I think. How long can I go on, Prabhu? I know it is 7:45. Is there any little bit of extra time available?
Yes, Prabhu, please, you can please go on.
Yeah. So I will try to make this short. So Kunti was the wife of Pandu, and she was actually from the aristocratic family. She used to be in a king's place. That is her father's place. She was, I think, adopted by Kunti Bhoja, even though her father is Surasena, who is basically father of Vasudeva. That means the father of Krishna. So basically she is Krishna's aunt, right? So Surasena, and Surasena was a great personality, and there would be many demigods coming to visit his kingdom. So he would depute his daughter to take care of basically, guests when they come, we always make someone to, supervise the arrangement for the guest, like that. So she was he was often assigned some responsibilities like that. And she is actually an incarnation of fortune herself. She's the Lord's potency is also fortune, and she's actually a potency of the Lord, as in she is the representation of the fortune potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when all of this, and she, there was, I think, the one Muni, Durvasa Muni, and she pleased him when he was coming to his to their kingdom, and she served him very well. As a result, Durvasa Muni gave her one boon. Whenever you want, you can call any of the demigods, and they will come and whatever you want to have interaction with them, it is possible. So she was given this boon. Okay, you may ask, how does it help? You look at it this way. Today, if I give you, or rather someone gives us a boon, saying that, whomever you wishes in this material world will come in front of you, I will immediately think of an Ambani come and, I can, talk to him, and then he can give me some crores of rupees. Or if you are film buff, you will say, can I have Shah Rukh Khan come over here? Or I don't know, whoever is the top in the film industry, we may want to have. Or if you're a sports person, can I have an audience with Kohli? These kind of things come in our mind. So it's sometimes it may look when you read here, what is the big thing about having the ability to get? But this is a very powerful boon in one sense, if you are in a materialistically inclined. So she thought, okay, let me try this boon, and then she called for Surya, like not Ambani or anyone, but she called Surya Dev, who's the who's giving the complete energy for this entire universe. If Surya is not there, none of us can live at all. So is the moon. If moon is not there, we may think moon is simply reflecting all the light from the sun. No, but moon only is able to actually give life to the plants. Otherwise, we can't even eat anything. So certain things we take it for granted. So, but then here they talk about the sun god. So the sun god, he immediately appears in front of her, and sun is, she's very, very, very beautiful. This lady is one of the, I know, Miss Universe or Miss whatever. Universe means we call universe only in only in what you call so-called Earth planet, but really a universe means the entire, so many cosmic manifestation. She was so beautiful, this lady. And he immediately, when he saw her, he felt, Cupid attacked him in one sense, and he felt like, no, I need to have a relationship with this lady. And she says, no, that is not possible. I need to be married as per my father's vision on that. And she said, no, don't worry. I will still ensure that you remain a virgin. Don't worry, I want to have a relationship, but you will still remain a virgin. So she somehow agrees. As a result of which, she has a son who's none other than Karna. We all know about the great quality of Karna. So he is son of the Surya Dev. So then he again gives us virginity. And now this is an illegitimate child in one sense, right? And nobody knows, including her parents, that this child, she's not married, and then she has a child by this man, great man. What to do? So she leaves that child off in the water. That's a different story. I will not go to that. So she abandons this child in one sense. And then later she, according to the parents, whatever arrangement, she marries Pandu, who's the father of the Pandavas. So again, as I say, everybody has a lot of different things in their life. It's not like one is always painted in one direction. There are different, in material world, all of us have got our little, various desires. We are driven by so many past karma, so many things. But these are all also pure devotees. So, one needs to be careful. Therefore, we cannot take them like how we are, even though there may be some little so-called or apparent contradictions in their life. Most of these pure devotees, you should also understand, is not because of their own doing, because they are actually coming here to this material world to perform a particular role in the overall drama of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that particular incarnation. So you should always balance all of these things, not immediately form an opinion about this personality and say, oh, she was like that, why should I give her respect, or like something like that, or this person is this, it applies to both men and women in this spiritual drama that has been enacted here. So we need to be mindful of that. These are not ordinary beings, but these also point out that, in material world, there are always these kind of plus and minuses. So we can use it to judge ourselves, not these personalities, but these are facts which were there. So we need to understand it in a proper context. So she marries this gentleman, and then over a period of time, he also develops the desire to leave home and go away. And how can I, and she is saying, how can you go away? We need to have children, we need to have this one, and I am married to you, and I need to be part of it. You can't. He says, I want to renounce. I want to take up the renounced order of life. She is very upset. How can this happen? Then he says, no, don't worry. You can, you will, as a woman, again, the children and caring, all that is part of the requirement in a woman's mind. So says, don't worry about that. You can have children from anyone you desire. She says, how can that be? It's not possible. But he convinces her, giving her various whatever shastric evidence to say that is okay, as long as I am giving you the permission, you can have children from other people. So she calls different devatas, and then she has 3 children. That means one is the Dharmaraja, who's basically she calls Yamraj. So not Vidura, but Vidura's original form, which is basically Yamraj. She calls him, and then and his child, the child who comes through that is basically Dharmaraj, and that's why he is having that justice in his thing, because he's partially the son of Yamraj himself. And then the Indra she calls, and then the son born out of Indra is Arjuna, and Bhima is Vayu's son. So these three children are born, and then Nakula and Sagadeva are actually the second wife of Pandu. He had another wife, and through her he had two children, and these two children also became part of her family. That's why these 3 + 2, 5 children are there. And Pandu, even though he was saying, I want to take exile and die, but before that he actually passes away. And since he passes away, then his mother, his wife, the other wife, also voluntarily she gives up her life. And then these two children are orphaned, and they are also part of Kunti's children that way. Therefore, you have these 5 Pandavas. And she did a amazing life. She lived, and she is a very great devotee of Krishna. Krishna saved her in many, many ways. And there's a wonderful prayer, Kunti's prayer, one entire chapter dedicated to Kunti. So that was there. And she was there with the children wherever they were there. She went along with them. And then when Karna died, she actually accepted to the entire world that, this is my first child born before my marriage. And then towards the end, she also goes with Gandhari. And then she is a great, also a master of all the yogic processes. She performs many wonderful, services to the Lord. And she also towards the end passes away once Gandhari and Dhṛtarāṣṭra passes away. She also passes away. So this is about her background, and there is also about Subhadra. Subhadra is, all of us, we see when we go to Jagannath Mandir, the lady sitting in between Krishna and Balram, the lady who's in the yellow color. So she is Subhadra. She is basically the sister of Krishna, and Arjuna somehow develops a desire to marry her, and therefore Krishna says, okay, you can marry her, I have no problem, but my brother is not very happy. He is already looking for another bride for her. So Krishna says, if you want to marry her, you need to kidnap her. So they are all in a very, there are sometimes many people go on some nice excursions, right? Like that, they are all, as a family, they are all going somewhere, and Arjuna used that opportunity to kidnap Subhadra. And those days it was allowed, like, a Kshatriya, if that's showing his manliness, and then, he can, there's some of these, Krishna also has done this on a couple of occasions, to my knowledge. So then immediately Baldev becomes very angry. I will kill this rascal, how can he, when I am arranging a marriage with another person, and how can he do this? Then Krishna actually goes and pleads with him, no, please, forgive him, he's a nice boy and I like him so much, whatever. So then he forgives him, and in the process he marries her, and her son was Abhimanyu. We all know a very great, valiant warrior, and he put up a big fight, and finally he was killed in a wicked way by the entire Kauravas. As a result, Subhadra was very distressed that my son has gone off like this. But somehow the consolation was Abhimanyu's wife was actually pregnant at that point in time, and then Parikshit Maharaj was born for this Abhimanyu, and there she got consolence. Okay, at least I have a grandson who's there. And we know Parikshit Maharaj is the reason why we are sitting and reading Bhagavatam today. So, and he was the one who actually, by surrendering to the son of Vyasadeva, so he was able to actually, Sukadeva Goswami, he actually then gave Bhagavatam to the entire universe through Parikshit Maharaj. So that is how it happened. And he became the heir for the Dhṛtarāṣṭra that we will see later. So this is something about this particular verse. Now let's look at the next one. With great delight, they all approached him, as if life had returned to their bodies. They exchanged obeisances and welcomed each other with embraces. So naturally, that the family reunion is happening. So that's being discussed here. Then, due to anxieties and long separation, they all cried out of affection. King Yudhishthira then arranged to offer sitting a room accommodation and reception. So, part of the process of welcoming someone who has been away from home for a long time. After Vidura ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. Then the king began to speak to him, and all who were present there listened. So now, after all the initial, euphoria of receiving him, giving him rest, giving him prasadam, everything. Okay, now let's sit and discuss what's happening. So that is what is happening. Then next verse is Maharaja Yudhishthira said, "My uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with our mother, from all sorts of calamities? Your partiality, like the wing of a bird, saved us from poisoning and arson." So Yudhishthira is remembering the favors done by Vidura. That is so nice, right? We always are having our gratitude. That's very important. And Yudhishthira is expressing his gratitude for his uncle who saved him, because these children, if you remember, their parents left, their father left in a very young age, and they were just this mother, and in such a big kingdom, they are supposed to be the heirs of this kingdom. So it's a very turbulent times for them. And naturally, in political circles, if you are young and if you are to be the powerful person, naturally there are so many enemies trying to usurp the kingdom, which happened in the case of them also with their uncle. That means in Kannada, Dodappa, right? Dhṛtarāṣṭra was trying to usurp the land, and he was trying to see how to kill these children. Very, very sad side of affairs. But here, this Vidura was very, very just, and he was actually understanding that Dhṛtarāṣṭra has this evil design, that he wants to kill these children and then take over the kingdom himself and then give that further to his children. So in that process, he built Dhṛtarāṣṭra built a very, very wonderful palace, as though showing it, no, I am doing this with a lot of love. And he was scheming inside that I will put all these children, including their mother, in that palace, and then I will burn that palace away. But Vidura understood that design, and then he gave him many hints. There were some riddles, like he gives them a hint. He says, "A weapon not made of steel or any other material element can be more than sharp to kill an enemy, and he who knows this is never killed." So there are many such hints he is giving. He could not directly tell, because there's everybody is monitored, right? It's not a simple thing. It's like you have to act in a very spy. There'll be so many things that he can't openly tell him, because they are scheming. The government is scheming to kill them, and he need to somehow help these boys. So he's giving some clues like this. And then he's telling, they understand that, there's going to be fire in this house and we need to escape. So they actually have a drill, a tunnel, and keep it ready. The minute the house is put under fire, they escape through this tunnel and get out of the kingdom along with their mother. But that was done in such a very nice manner that this Dhṛtarāṣṭra didn't even realize that they have escaped. He thought they are all burnt, and he performed rites, like, all the last rites and all that, and everybody was so much remorse. This again, while they schemed to kill, but at the same time there is also this other side which has this love for the people. This is always there. So everybody were crying, but only Vidura was little, he knew these boys have actually escaped, like that. So that was happening. So he's actually recalling and showing his gratitude to his uncle that, you did so many things which are favorable, partial, like that. Even though Vidura also had a very nice attitude towards the Kauravas, and naturally, right, and that's why he gave them good counseling, even though sometimes it may look like chastising, but it was actually to give them the good advice that he was doing. So in that sense, he was partial to them. But how you see it is because, he's always angry with me. He's not angry. He's actually doing good for you by telling you what is wrong with you, right? A well-wisher is not only giving sugar-coated words. He tells the real things which actually benefits us. But that was taken in a wrong sense. So the next verse is, while traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At what holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render service? So this is the inquiry. Now, what all happened, uncle? Tell us about your adventure. You had been for a long time enjoying various holy places, going around, meeting so many people. Please enlighten us what all happened. How did you survive? So that they are asking. And then, my Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. So this is another philosophical point. Uh, Prabhupada actually explains very beautifully why temples are there. See, the idea, why should people go to temples? The idea is this: when you go to we always know this, there's a lot of energy everywhere. There's so much negative energy, there's so much positive energy. So when you go to a places of like temple, uh, I'm covering just one aspect of it from based on what Prabhupada is saying. That means, so when you go to a place like a temple, there are many self-realized personalities who are there in the temple for a different, they are able to see the personality of Godhead in that Vigraha there. We can't see, we can only see some kind of, it could be a wooden deity like we have Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra, or it could be a marble deity or like our Radha Krishna, or it could be some stone deity like Lord Balaji. But for us, it sometimes looks like a simple material thing. But when the pure devotees who are self-realized, they are able to see the personality of Godhead there. So they are all actually there in temples. And common men go to the temple not simply to see this deity, which is also most important, but since we can't really see the Lord in that one, the idea is how to get enlightened to see the God there. So the idea of going to a temple is to associate with such great personalities who are already there. So, and then you actually became self-realized by associating with him. Just like here, Maitreya Muni was the realized person and Vidura went and associated with him and got knowledge. So like this you are supposed to go. But where these people are there, that place itself is the Tirtha, that holy place. That is what here Vidura has been addressed as. Like wherever you are there, that is a holy place itself, like that. Okay, next one is, my uncle, you must have visited Dwaraka. In that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abodes? Naturally, right? They are asking about the clan of Krishna. How are they? Because they were always fond of Krishna and all his relatives. So he's asking about them. But here Vidura is not talking about that dynasty who has already collapsed. But because here it is mentioned, the great personalities do not want to bring distress to other devotees. So he doesn't touch upon that topic though. Compassionate Mahatma Vidura could not stand to see the Pandavas' distress at any time. Therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident, because calamities come of their own accord. So calamities anyway come. Why do you give some artificial calamity by telling some information? When they have to know, they will know. I don't have to unnecessarily bring this in now. That's what is Vidura's mood. So he did not explain that. Thus, Mahatma Vidura, being treated just like a godly person by his kinsmen, remained there for a certain period just to rectify the mentality of his eldest brother, and in this way bring happiness to all the others. So here, Vidura has actually taken up this, what do you call, even though not sannyas, the stage before sannyas, which is basically, we have 4 stages, which is basically, what do you call, brahmacharya, then grahastha, then vanaprastha and sannyasa. This vanaprastha stage is the 3rd stage, where you are actually married, you are part of the family, but you are not part of the family. That means you mentally start disassociating with this, but you associate with self-realization. Even though you may live in your own home, you will be having your wife and all that. That stage where you are there, but you are not there, kind of detached from the family life. So when someone is above 50, they are supposed to take vanaprastha, 50 to 75 kind of a time frame. If you are living 100 years, that is. So now he is in that mode. So he is not going to his house, which is also there, right? He was sent away. He actually went off because this Duryodhana thinking his uncle is actually troubling him, he's always talking against him. That's how Duryodhana was thinking, and therefore he used some very very hard words on Vidura, and Vidura said, to hell with all of you, I don't care. I will leave this place, and you all go to, whatever. You are not listening to me anyway, and I have nothing to do with here. And that's why he actually went on a pilgrimage. So now he's come back, but he had wonderful land. He was also given a nice house. Everything was there, but he never went there. He was there here because he's now not associated or detached from all of that. But his only aim here is to actually come and give this family this Krishna consciousness. So particularly to his elder brother, who actually supported him at that initial times, right, when he is a Shudrani's son or maidservant's son. But Dhṛtarāṣṭra cared for him and gave him equal status. He gave him land, everything. So he had his affection and he had his kind of a thing for this gentleman, that though he's going in the wrong way, I want to save him. This is Vidura's mood. And therefore he was there trying to help him. Thus, Mahatma Vidura, being treated just like a godly person, remained there for a certain period just to rectify the mentality of his eldest brother and this way bring happiness to all others. Then, as long as Vidura played the part of a Shudra, being cursed by Manduka Muni, Aryama officiated at the post of Yamaraja to punish those who committed sinful acts. So, while Vidura was on deputation, who was managing this affairs? So, this was done by Aryama. He's one of the sons of Aditi, very well qualified to step in the shoes of Dharmaraj. So he was officiating as the Supreme Court judge till such time, this 100 years when Vidura was actually, Yamaraj was here as Vidura, playing that role. Next one is, having won his kingdom and absorbed the birth of one grandson, competent to continue the noble tradition of his family, Maharaja Yudhishthira reigned peacefully and enjoyed uncommon opulence in cooperation with his younger brother, who are all expert administrators to the common people. So it talks about the passing of time. During this period when Vidura was there, he was giving them Krishna consciousness. That means literally giving classes every day, like how we are spending time together, trying to understand Krishna consciousness. Like that, he was giving classes, and time was passing. So Yudhishthira was also peaceful. So he has gone through so much turbulence. Now he is happy. He not in a materialistic sense, because he is a completely pure devotee. He understands this second he can leave this thing and go away. He was not attached to any of those things, but he has a responsibility to perform in that Leela of the Supreme Lord, and therefore his anxiety was like, I leave, then this thing has to be managed. Therefore, when this Parikshit was born, then he was happy. Okay, now my role is getting over. Now Parikshit can take over and I can actually go on my journey of self-realization or my service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That was his mood. So it was there. And then next one is, insurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are too much attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in this thought. So this is the area where Vidura is coming to hit hard on Dhṛtarāṣṭra. So he's telling him, boss, how long you will live like this? You are so old already now. That we will see in the next few verses. But he's setting the stage. Nobody is permanently able to stay here. How much ever you are so happy in this life, you will be vacated. Prabhupada, you have to read these purports. This is sort of like each verse will be one big class per se. So we are just going through like this. So I'm just keeping to the high level commentary. But you should all take time to read these verses. Very, very amazing. Once you read that, you suddenly become very clear, what am I doing in life? We get that understanding. I want to leave you with that thought for these verses. Please read the purport of these verses. So he is starting off his bashing of Maharaj Yudhishthira, Dhṛtarāṣṭra, basically giving him, again, no sugarcoating, telling facts as they are, so that, sometimes when someone is behaving so erratically, like, out of shock, someone gives them a slap and then they come to their senses. Actually, this is what Vidura is doing to Dhṛtarāṣṭra. He's telling him, now you see very strong words. Mahatma Vidura knew all this, and therefore he addressed Dhṛtarāṣṭra, saying, my dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you. This frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world, my lord. It is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as eternal time, Kala, that has approached us all. He's saying, you cannot escape from you can't continue to keep on enjoying. However, your body has become bad, everything has become bad, but your intention is simply to sit and enjoy life. But ultimately, everybody has to leave this world. He's giving these examples of how great personalities, like, a great scientist was working so hard. He was to attend a planning commission meeting with so much of responsibility on him. He was suddenly taken by death. We have seen many such great personalities. I don't want to name them, but they were working so hard like an ass, and they didn't get even that one extra minute to take care of their, some personal matters about their assets and things like that. Suddenly they had to leave this world. When death comes, like Krishna comes and snatches away everything, whatever we are attached to, everything is gone in 1 second. Like, there's nobody gives, okay, I will give you another half an hour to leave. No, that doesn't happen. So he's reminding of that situation. Baba, get out. This is high time you go and do self-realization and not simply be eating and sleeping here. Whoever is under the influence of the supreme Kala must surrender his most dear life, and what to speak of other things such as wealth, honor, children, land and home. Everything will go away. One needs to be very, very mindful that this human form of life is meant for self-realization, nothing else. Your father, brother, well-wisher and sons are all dead and passed away. You yourself have expended the major portion of your life, and your body is now overtaken by invalidity, and you are living in the home of another. This is the thing. There was once Yudhishthira was asked a question, what is so astonishing to you? So he says, I am so astonished by the fact that when everybody sees that everybody senior to them or in their family, or they are seeing people passing away, they think I am going to be here eternally. This is the most fascinating thing. While everybody knows this, but when it comes to them, they think I'm going to be here eternally. Like, I'm going to enjoy, I want to enjoy. We will be building long castles. We will be trying to create everything so perfect for our livelihood. When and we have participated in the death of many people, that, suddenly yesterday he was there, we were talking, this is called Mashana Vairagya. We think, when we see something like that, we start crying, life is all only this much. What is the point of living, all this. The next day he's at his most important movie theater, like, enjoying a movie. So this concept, we are not getting it. This life is to be, this human form of life is to be really spent with a lot of introspection, trying to understand the purpose of life and make that this life as the last life after which I will not take birth. But somehow, while we sort of think we get it, but immediately we are lured into so many other sense gratificatory processes, and we suddenly lose so much of time. So Vidura is so strong, and he gives this directly without giving any sugar coating. And he's saying, everybody passed away. Don't think you are going to live here for long, Baba. You are already so old. So just prepare to leave the body. There's art of dying. That's also important. Sometimes we always think of art of living, but we should know about the art of dying, because living is for the point when we come to a stage of self-realization, and then we leave and we don't come back and suffer once more with this human body. That's very important. You have been blind from your very birth, and recently you have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose, your liver is defective, and you are coughing up mucus. Right? Actually, this is true of all of us also. I am also losing my memory. You may have already seen that I'm struggling to remember the names, some concepts. But this is true. This is fact. We can't think, I am so great. Even though I'm not so old, maybe my hair has grown old. But I'm saying Kali Yuga, we are short-lived, right? Even at 40, 50, you look like 70. So this is Kali Yuga. Therefore, we need to be more careful. Like, don't take it for granted that, I will live 100 years. But even if we live 100 years, it is better to know now and then, use that time to really take up and progress very fast and ensure that we don't come back after this particular body is gone. We are permanent beings. Actually, we are supposed to be very permanent. We are always youthful. But why to be imprisoned in one body and suffer? We are actually talking about that, the art of living. Art of living means not like this temporarily. We are talking about art of living permanently. Therefore, this temporary phase is there. It will also go. There is no doubt about it. Nobody can ever think, will I go? Of course, we will all go. So it's not more about the body, but actually I don't go. That means the jiva who is inside this body, who is permanent, Therefore, I need to quickly attain that state rather than coming back and suffering with all this old age and disease and mental sickness and whatnot. That is important. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog and eating remnants of food given by Bhima. See, this is very sad, right? There is no need to live in a degraded life and subsist on the charity of those whom you tried to kill by arson and poisoning. You also insulted one of their wives and usurped their kingdom and wealth. This is so bad, right? Here you have tried to kill them and they are now giving you shelter. You are so shameless that you are taking their comfort and then you are living happily. And these are the same gentlemen who killed your son, for whom he did everything. You did all these sinful activities. But these fellows actually killed your son. But in spite of it, you are taking their food and you are taking their whatever comfort they are giving and you are living happily. Don't you have any shame? This is what Vidura is actually telling him. Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment. You may do whatever, but at the end of the day, death will come, Baba. Please get out of this place. Have some self-respect, have some introspection, have some little bit of a desire to go and finish this material body, finish this material existence. So this is what Vidura is strongly telling him. He is called undisturbed who goes to an unknown remote place and free from all obligations quits his material body when it has become useless. So he's telling, high time you leave. He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or from others the falsity and misery of this material world and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. That means the point of coming to a point of giving up attachment, that I am not this body, nothing belongs to me. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I am completely free from this material attachment, but completely attached to your lotus feet. I am here to serve you, O Supreme Personality of Godhead. Come to that mood. Give up all your desires for this happiness of gratification of the senses. Just leave. That's what he's telling him. And that is how people actually are supposed to. A lot of philosophies there. I don't have time to go into them. Please therefore leave for the north immediately without letting your relatives know, for soon that time will approach which will diminish the good qualities of men. That means he's talking the imminent arrival of the Kali Yuga. So that period will be even bad. Therefore, before even Kali Yuga touches, you leave, because you are already a rascal. And if you are surviving during Kali Yuga time, then you will be even more enamored by all these selfish thoughts. So you just quickly leave now. This is the time for you to leave. He says that. And then he says, thus Maharaj Dhṛtarāṣṭra, this coin of the family of Ajamida, firmly convinced the introspective knowledge, Pranja, broke at once the strong network of family affection by his resolute determination. Thus he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation as directed by the younger brother Vidura. So he's telling before this verse, please therefore leave for the north immediately without letting your relatives know. That we discussed. So here the point is, see, when you are actually given this knowledge by a pure devotee, it touches our heart. This is the philosophy on this verse. So he spent so much of his life like this. But finally, when Vidura finally gives him that strong message, he immediately gets it. That is the greatness of pure devotees. They say, lava matra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoi. If you are in association of a pure devotee, even for a second, that gives so much of benefit. This is that Prabhupada actually, this is a nice way to end this verse, this particular session. Prabhupada says, I was personally benefited by association with a pure devotee. He says, see, I would have been a great business magnate had I not met Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. He says that when I met this gentleman for a few seconds, in my first meeting, he told me, you please take up this message of Krishna consciousness and try to preach this message all over the world in the English language. He told me in his first meeting. And that was in my head, as I was going through my life, that became more and more prominent in my head. Otherwise, if I had not got that instruction, if I had not met that sadhu for half a second, I would have been more engrossed in material activity. And Prabhupada, you know what he is capable of. He says, I would have become a great business magnate and I would have established a big empire of business and I would have been wasting my time. I would have rotted. Prabhupada is actually saying something like that. But by this mercy of this great personality of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, I was saved. And he used this verse to say, Vidura, even though he's giving some hard words to him, but because of his purity, he is able to immediately transform the heart of the conditioned souls. So that way Vidura is actually glorified, and that's why a spiritual master is like a thunder. He's not here to sugarcoat anything. He will call a spade, and he will tell you, rascal, you are wasting your time. And sometimes we may think it may be difficult for us to hear, but that is what we need to hear because it is for our good. And so Vidura did that, and that awakened Dhṛtarāṣṭra. We know such a man who was going to kill his own, literally his children, right? His brother's children. I don't know if any of us can be so cruel, right? In a mind like that. But he was like that. But in spite of that, here Vidura is able to immediately remove his misgivings and then transform him. That's the greatness of the Sadhu Sangha. And the last verse is this one, where he says, the gentle and chaste Gandhari, who was the daughter of King Subala of Kandahar or Gandhara, followed her husband, seeing that he was going to the Himalaya mountains, which are the delight of those who have accepted the staff of the renounced order, like fighters who have accepted a good lashing from the enemy. So Gandhari also follows her husband. So with this I will finish. I'm sorry I took some 20 minutes extra than what was being given. I'm grateful all of you took time to stay and listen to whatever little I could actually convey through these 15 verses. I will end here. If there are any questions, any comments, we can discuss for 5-10 minutes time.